Hi and welcome to today's video. If you're new here, hi, my name is Luna and welcome to Luna's bookshelf. In the video of today I'm going to talk about some books that I think are personally underrated, are not talked about enough. So I'm going to show you some books. They are different genres. There are even a non-fiction book included in this video. So let's get into it. The first book I'm going to talk about is a book you've already seen on this channel. It's a book I read in July and I talked about it and really loved it, and that is The Match by Sarah Adams. It's a book I have not seen before. I saw it in a bookstore in the airport and read it. I know a lot of her other books but never heard of this one, so I think it's a little bit more underrated. I really love the book. The book follows Evie Jones, and she has epilepsy, and she also has a service dog called Charlie. And one day she works for a company that trains dogs to be service dogs for different reasons, for like people with epilepsy as an example. And one day she receives an email from a father wanting to meet up because his daughter also has epilepsy and maybe he is thinking about getting her a service dog. But when they meet up, it's a little bit of a misunderstanding because in reality he didn't send the email. So yeah, it's a really lovely book. It's also in dual POV, which I really loved about this because you get to see both the characters, their ideas and all of it, their thoughts. I really loved it. It's something that I haven't seen before, like someone with epilepsy and a service dog. So I really love that it's included in the book. There's also the second book, I forgot the name. I'm really sorry. The Enemy, and I think it follows his sister, Jack's sister. I also forgot her name. I'm sorry, but I really wanted to read. I think it also some new covers, but really recommend reading this book. It's a romance and it is, if I remember correctly, closed doors. I will put it in the screen if it is or not. Then the next book is a book I read last year, at the end of last year I think, if I remember correctly. It's a book I've seen another booktuber talk about, and that's one of the reasons why I bought it, and that was Jack Edwards. I saw him talking about the book and I was immediately intrigued. Also the cover is beautiful, so that's also one of the reasons why I bought it. And that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. It's like a cozy fantasy book. It follows a guy named Linus. He works for this department in charge of magical youth. So as I said, it's a little bit of fantasy, soft fantasy, not that complicated or anything. And there is this house with orphans, but they have some really special abilities and they need some extra care, and he goes there to see if everything there is okay. There also involves a romance between him and someone who works there. You will see. It's also closer, so there's no spies or anything. I really loved how it was written. It's beautiful. I also annotated a lot of this book. It really took me by surprise because I wouldn't have thought at first I would love it this much. It's really nice. Also, there's a second book I think coming out, if I'm correct, I'm not sure, but I really love it and I'm really interested to see other books by this author because I really love this, and I really recommend reading it if you haven't yet, because I have not seen a lot of other people talk about this book when it really should be talked about. The next book is a book I've only know one person talked about it. That was Haley Pham in a video a couple of years ago. There is a sticker, or not really a sticker, it's a fake sticker on here that says as seen on TikTok, but I've never seen it on TikTok, so maybe just not here in Belgium. I saw it, but maybe in the US or Canada or the UK, I don't know. And the book is A Brush with Love by Maisie Eddings. I've never seen a book from her before seeing it in the video of Haley Pham. It really intrigued me. It kind of reminded me of Ellie Hazelwood, her books, because this one follows a dental student, Harper, and yeah, it's kind of the same vibe. It reminded me of Ali Hazelwood books because they are also like STEM romances and so on. It also has like anxiety disorder that comes into it, so I really love books like that that represent something that is meaningful and a lot of people can recognize themselves in, and I really think this book really has done that very well. So I really recommend reading it. Then the next book is a non-fiction book. It's a non-fiction book I bought last year. Yes, last year in Paris in the Shakespeare and Company bookstore. I saw it and I was immediately intrigued by the summary of it. I've never seen anything like it, and that is Love Stories by Trent Dalton. So this is a non-fiction book, so these are all real stories. It's an Australian author and he sits on the corner of a busy street and he asks people on the street to tell them a love story. So this is kind of a collection with a lot of love stories, both sad but happy, really beautiful. I did take a long time reading it, but it's because it are real lives, and it is so incredible. It's really nice and how it's all written down. I really recommend reading it because when you walk around the street, you sometimes forget every human has his own story and his own life. And this book really reminded me of that because you can see someone and think how their life is or how they are, but you would never know unless you ask them. And that's what he did. He asked them to tell him a love story, and he got some really beautiful and also heartbreaking stories. So yeah, really recommend reading it. Also, if you're not really into nonfiction, I really recommend reading because it doesn't necessarily feel like a nonfiction book because it's also written very easily. So yeah, really recommend reading this book. Then the next book is a book I saw at the bookstore one day and I was immediately intrigued by the cover. I was like, and what was on the cover, like, what is this book about? I've never seen it anywhere on Booktube or BookTok, so I was like, what is this? And when I read it, I was so glad I picked it up and started reading it because it's so good. And that is a thriller, Listen for the Lie by Emmy Tara. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. This is her debut novel, normally, and it's a thriller book, and it's about Lucy, and she is suspected of murdering her best friend. But there's plot twists. Like, she doesn't know, she doesn't remember anything from the night it happened. She has a blackout, and everyone thinks she's done it, but she doesn't even know if she's done it. Then there comes a guy into the story called Owen. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but I think it was Owen. Or Ben. Sometimes I really need to... Yeah, it was Ben. And he is starting a podcast on this murder case and he wants to solve it. So he interviews people who are involved in the case, who are living in the small town. It was really interesting, especially because she doesn't even know herself if she's done it. So you go along with her, the main character, who is it about. Did she done it or didn't she do it? So yeah, and because of Am I a Murderer? You Tell Me, I saw that, and also the reviews on the front, I was like, this sounds really good. So yeah, I give it also 5 stars because it was so good, it had me hooked. I really need to know if she done it or not. So yeah, go read it to find out, I would say. Then the next book, and also the last book, is a book I saw a couple of weeks ago in a bookstore, and it's a book by a Belgian author. I normally read books in English because I don't know why, I just normally read books in English, and I saw this book and I was immediately like, this sounds good, and also the cover is very pretty. I'm still reading it actually, but I just had to include it in this video because I just know it's going to be a very high rating because I'm absolutely eating this book up. I started today and I'm already almost halfway through, so that means a lot. And that book is Indigo by Roxanne Willens. If you, so I don't know, I don't think it's translated, but if it gets maybe one day translated, I really recommend reading it. So it follows Indigo Heart. She's a journalist and she discovers late in her 20s that she has autism and ADHD. So that's a really big change for her and she really doesn't know how to deal with it. And I really loved how it's all written. I really get into the characters, her head, and how she feels with all of this going on in her life now and finding out she has this. It's like I feel like I know her and she's like my friend talking to me, if you know what I mean. But because it's so well written, and there was this one line I just read and I was like, wow, this is so good. So yeah. So if you are from here, from Belgium, the Netherlands, and are looking for a book by a Belgian author written in Dutch, I really recommend picking this book up because it's so good. So yeah, and also the cover is very pretty. I mean, look at this. That's, don't tell me that's pretty. That isn't pretty. So yeah. I just said that was the last book, but I then forgot I have two other books I need to talk about because I don't have them, the physical copy of them. I have them, I read them on my Kobo, so they're ebooks. So the first book I'm going to talk about, yeah, not really the first book, but the first book that I want to talk about that I don't have a physical copy of is Live, Branch, Love by Emma Lucy. I read this book as an ARC. I kindly received from Love Notes PR. And I really love the book. It's a cowboy romance in a small town. It is a spicy romance, so keep that in mind. But she's an influencer and her aunt just passed away and she has to go to the ranch her aunt owns and get things in order. There's this guy living on the ranch and they don't get along immediately. There is some tension there and you know where it's going. But I really love the book. It's her debut novel. There are other books coming because it's going to be a little series, if I'm correct. I really loved it. It's very quick to read. I also love the cover, if I'm going to put it here in the screen. It's very nice. It was my first cowboy romance-ish and I really liked it. I ate this book up. So if you're looking for authors that are not well known, I really recommend looking this book up. The next book I'm going to talk about is The First Time by Nicole Baker. It's part of an interconnected series, but I haven't read the first book. I also got I got the opportunity to read this book as an ARC, also thanks to Love Notes PR, so thank you guys. I'm not influenced because I'm saying this, by the way. I really enjoyed those books, so just so you know. But this book, I read it in one day, also because I was like on the way to vacation, on the way in the car, so I was like constantly reading. But still, it was really good. It's like best friend's brother. So yeah, there's also some spice in. And they used to date, but then they broke up. A lot is going on. She's a chef. So yeah, I really loved it. It was really good. I'm really bad at explaining books. I'm sorry. But it was really nice. It is written very quickly. I really recommend looking that up and checking it out. So yeah. That was it for today's video. I hope you guys got some good recommendations from this video. I hope you will look one book up or two. Let me know if you do and if you read one of them and what your thoughts are. If you have a book that is maybe a little bit more underrated, let me know in the comments and maybe I can read it next time. See you guys next time. Bye!